Good morning. Today we're going to talk about how to grow a vegetable garden in Colorado. It's pretty challenging in Colorado given the conditions that we have that are often extreme. We follow some steps that we're going to outline for you. You should have a very successful year. The first most important step is to take care of your soil. And that means to till it, to amend it with organic compost, and to prepare it for your seeds and your starts. By tilling compost into your soil, you're doing three things. You are aerating it, given our clay soils, that's super important to give room for roots to grow well. You are providing nutrients to the plants, and you're introducing microorganisms to the soil, which are also very beneficial for plant growth and success. The other thing that tilling compost into your soil does is it helps the soil to retain water. It becomes spongy when there's compost in the soil, and it holds water longer and maintains a good soil moisture for your plants. All right, when it comes time to plant, first thing you got to do is think through what you want to plant. You want to plan which things you actually imagine yourself eating. Okay, once you've determined what you think you'll use in the garden, what you'll eat, then you want to determine a rotation plan. There's crops that like it in the spring, and then you can replant those in the fall. And then there's crops that like the really hot season. And you don't want to be tempted to plant those in the spring. So what we're looking at in the spring, for instance, are a lot of your lettuces, radishes, carrots, and then rotate to another set of crops like peppers and tomatoes and chilies during the warm season. Some plants don't do well in a small veggie garden because they sprawl so much. Avoid the temptation of planting things like squash and even corn, watermelons in a small garden because they'll just take over. And the thing with corn is that it'll suck up all of your nutrients and it takes up a lot of space. One of the biggest concerns in our environment is that things are very dry and it gets very hot. Temperature fluctuations are extreme. And so one way to combat that is to add the compost to your soil, which modifies the soil temperature and the soil moisture, but you can also mulch over the top of the soil with straw mulch, which also does the same. It's really important for plants not to have those fluctuations in temperature and moisture, and that's one way to modify that. It's really important in your garden to plant perennials and herbs. And the reason to plant perennials is that a lot of those plants attract pollinator insects, and they also are a natural deterrent for insects that you don't want in your garden. So plants like marigolds and zinnias are good annual plants. And then it's really great to have perennials in your garden that also are useful in cooking. When it comes to irrigation in your garden, it's super important to conserve water, but also to water properly. So if your garden has a drip system, that's great. Because plants want water at their roots and not over the top of their foliage. If you don't have drip in your garden, it's just as easy to attach one of these water wands to a hose, and then you saturate the soil at the base of the plants and not over the top of them, and you only water around each of the plants and don't promote weeds throughout your beds. Over time, your plants, as they develop and grow, they don't need as much water. So now you've planted your garden and now you're waiting for things to start to produce. And there's a time period in there where you need to think about how to maintain the garden. And one really important thing is to reduce the stress on the plants by weeding your garden as you need to. It's important to till your soil around the plants so that the water will infiltrate better. And then the plants need room to grow, so you need to thin them out. You want to harvest and start using your plants, especially the greens when they're young. That's when they're the best tasting. And a lot of folks will let their plants go to seed, and then they're no good at that point. So harvesting is super important. In the summer, when you have tomatoes, for instance, it's really important to trim a lot of the extra foliage off the plant, so it's putting all its energy into producing the fruit. It's also easier when you do that to be able to see what you're growing, where everything is, and where to put your water wand down at the base of the plants. If you see pests, one of the best methods is to get a soapy water mix and just spray it on the plants and saturate the soil with that, it will tend to get rid of things like aphids and so forth if you stay on top of that. One thing also not to do is to make sure that you don't leave spent plants in the garden for too long. You want to take them out and compost them if you can, but you don't want to leave them in the garden to sort of fester, and pests will take over in those situations as well. You want to clean your tools so that if you do have any disease in your garden, you're not spreading it around. If you have basil in your garden, you want to stay on top of clipping off all the flowers, because with basil you're using the leafy green in your kitchen and the flowers will make the leaves sour. Also important when you're excited about planting your veggie garden to be careful not to plant things that don't belong in the garden in the spring because of the temperatures. It will stunt things like tomatoes and peppers, and you can get them started, you can harden them off out in the yard, but bring them in the evening and then wait to plant them until we've had our last frost. Otherwise, you'll be disappointed. Just follow these steps throughout the season and you'll be excited at the bounty that comes your way. If you need help designing and planting your garden, just reach out to us. We're here to help.